Thanks, Nubuntu. Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm Vivek Kasipasad. I'm at the Capital Projects Unit. And at the unit, which is within GTAC, we look at the feasibility of implementing large infrastructure projects. For our webinar this afternoon, we are really fortunate to have Johan Lubbe. Johan is currently the head of the Water Partnerships Office. This is an entity of the Department of Water and Sanitation, which is housed at the Development Bank of South Africa, the DBSA. He is responsible for the establishment and management of the office, which was established to develop and implement standardized water services programs, and these are aimed at facilitating private sector participation in the municipal water sector. Johan is a professional engineer, and he's been involved in planning, preparation, and development of various large infrastructure projects. Johan has a thorough understanding of project finance, PPPs, the municipal environment, and he has gained valuable experience in the financial and legal aspects related to structuring, financing, preparation, and bankability of infrastructure projects. Lastly, by training, Johan is a civil engineer. He's also completed studies in law and development finance. So Johan is quite qualified to talk to us about our topic this afternoon. Johan, over to you.
Thank you very much, Vivek, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation to share a bit of the work that we are busy with at the WPO. It's always good to engage in these types of forums to not only show what we're doing, but also hear what's happening out there, and also try and see if there are other opportunities that we can support with. Colleagues, I've got a couple of slides that I just want to take you through. So I just want to load them up quickly. Just hope I can get the right one now. Okay, I think that's it. Can I just get an indication if you can all see the slide?
Yes, Johan, it's visible.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Colleagues, my first couple of slides is just a refresher on the WPO, our mandate, what it is that the different programs that we're working on. I know some of you may be familiar with that, but there might be others that aren't. So if you just bear with me, I just want to run through them quickly, and then we'll move on to each of the programs that we have. We've got 6 standardized programs, and I'll quickly take you through the programs and the projects that we are working on and initiatives within those different programs. So just as an introduction, we know that municipalities are often very much constrained when it comes to funding, skills, expertise to prepare and implement projects. But we know the responsibility, the mandate for water services lies with municipalities. On the other hand, we've got the private sector, we've got lots of skills, expertise, there's lots of money in the private sector, and they want to invest in projects, but we don't have those projects ready. We don't have mechanisms to channel the private sector capacity and funding through into water services projects at municipal level. So we need to try and bridge that gap and prepare projects, structure projects to get them to a stage that they are ready and able for the private sector to then participate in. And that's really what the purpose and the mandate of the WPO is. As Vivek has mentioned, we are owned by the Department of Water and Sanitation. We established as part of a partnership between DWS DBSA and Salgo. We're housed within the DBSA, so we're not a separate legal entity, but we make use of the DBSA corporate infrastructure as a ring-fenced agency within the DBSA. There's a steering committee that's been established that oversees the work of the WPO, and it's chaired by the DG. Now, our role is firstly to develop standardized programs, and I think it's important to note here why are we looking at developing standardized programs? We know that municipalities often work in silos. They don't know what one municipality doesn't know what the other one is doing. We aren't able to learn from previous experiences. We often start from scratch and reinvent the wheel. And through a standardized approach, we hope to be able to benefit from previous experiences, from developments, from developing standardized documentation. Sorry, can we just get muted? Thank you. So we want to benefit from a standardized approach from developing from developing standardized documentation that we can use again, and we don't have to start from scratch, and make that available to different municipalities for their projects. Just to refer back to the REAP program, we know the success of the REAP program, and it was also based on a similar model and approach, and that's what we're trying to replicate in the water sector. To look at things, from a programmatic perspective, and that will hopefully make it easier, quicker, and more cost-effective for us to prepare projects, and also for the private sector to respond. We see a benefit also for private sector if they know that the same terms of reference, if it's a non-revenue water project, for example, then the same terms of reference is going to be issued for every project. It will make it easier and not so costly for the private sector transaction advisors, for example, to then respond to those bids. And then secondly, within the different programs, we then support with the preparation of projects. So we don't do the preparation work ourselves. We still make use of transaction advisors, of consultants, but it's within the framework of these programs that we've developed, and we then source project preparation funding to then procure and appoint transaction advisors to do the bankable feasibility studies. We provide guidance, and again, the framework is set within the different standardized programs. And then projects are being prepared and structured for blended finance solutions. The WPO is not a bank, so we don't invest into the implementation of projects. We've got access to preparation funding, and that's really the area that we play. And then projects that are once prepared will go out to the market, and there's different investors that can then support and participate in funding. For example, the private sector through commercial banks, asset managers, pension funds, DFIs can participate, etc. We've received some initial funding to establish the office from the National Treasury, and are receiving annual contributions from the DWS. Just to note here that we don't get any funding from the DBSA, so we are operating independently from a financial perspective in the DBSA. And the DBSA also doesn't have any right to finance projects. They will participate alongside other funders for investments. This is just again a recap of some of the things, and I have already mentioned some of them. So part of what we do is to assist with that project preparation, the design, structuring, bankability of projects. We also can do procurement, so we make use of the DBSA supply chain management processes and policies to procure advisors, for example, or if it's procurement for implementation, it can either be done through the DBSA supply chain management processes, and then contracting happens between the municipality and a contractor or a successful bidder, or otherwise the municipality will do the procurement, but obviously supported by the WPO and transaction advisors. I spoke about the standardization. We're also bringing in best practice through these different programs. We can also use the WPO as a communication platform to communicate with the public, for example, around reuse or water savings. We're not a technology demonstration platform, so we don't test new technologies, but we want to be able to then scale and create opportunities for scaling new technologies that has been demonstrated and proven. And then also an important one, and obviously only once projects goes into implementation, but we then also provide a monitoring, reporting, and contract management support to the municipality. So, for example, if it's a 20-year PPP that the municipality will enter into, they will require will be required to monitor and manage the PPP during the implementation phases, and we do provide support in that regard. So I just want to spend a bit of time on this slide. This illustrates the 6 programs that we have, and I'll quickly run through each one of them. So the first one is a non-revenue water program, which is designed to assist municipalities to reduce their non-revenue water. So it's looking at reducing physical losses, but also improving revenues. So municipalities often lose revenues because of meters that for example, are not working, illegal connections, etc., and holistically looking at seeing how we can reduce that non-revenue water. The mechanism that we use is through performance-based contracts. So PBCs has been very successful internationally to help utilities to reduce non-revenue water, and that's effectively bringing a PBC contractor on board that will then be responsible for a specific area. It can be the whole municipality, or it can just be targeted or selected areas, demand zones. And effectively, the PBC contractor is then responsible for executing and actioning certain interventions that will reduce non-revenue water. That can be fixing leaks, it can be pipe replacements, it can be installing PRVs, it's installing new meters. So whatever is necessary to reduce non-revenue water within that project area is then the responsibility of the PBC contractor. And we are also looking to see if we can design the PBC in such a manner that the contractor is bringing funding to the table. So PBC contractor will, if it's successful, go to a bank and say, I've got this contract for municipality X and I'm required to invest 100 or 200 or 500 million rand into this non-revenue water interventions. Some funding might come from the municipality, and then there's a revenue sharing mechanism between the PBC contractor and the municipality. But the contractor will only get paid once he reaches certain targets and performance is achieved. So that's the non-revenue water program. The second program is a water reuse program, and it's effectively reusing municipal effluent. So we're taking water from treated water from municipal wastewater treatment works. In this program, we can also look at the upgrading, refurbishment, or rehabilitation of an existing wastewater treatment works, and then doing advanced treatment on that water, but also looking at generating energy from these facilities, beneficiating the sludge, to look at a complete and holistic resource recovery. The model that's probably the best suited for these types of projects are obviously a project finance or a PPP mechanism. So we are starting to look at a couple of potential PPP projects in the water reuse environment. This program, we've also secured some funding from the GCF. Some of you might know that, the Green Climate Fund. We've obtained funding, both grant funding as well as concessional loan funding. So the grant funding is used to build the pipeline, so to do the preparation work. And then there's a concessional loan that can go in on a blended finance basis alongside other funders to support the implementation of water reuse projects. And I'll come back a bit later on around the pipeline of projects that we are working on at the moment. The third program is a wastewater treatment program, and I think it's closely linked to the water reuse, but we don't always have a reuse opportunity. In many cases, we just need to treat effluent to the right standards before we discharge. And we know from the Green Drop report that many of the wastewater treatment works in the country are failing. So this program will focus on finding mechanisms, ways to address those challenges and make sure that these plants are functioning properly and discharge the right quality effluent into the environment. This is a bit more difficult when it comes to a financing perspective, because in smaller municipalities, there isn't always a revenue stream associated with a project. So it's more difficult to structure a PPP or a project finance transaction for such projects. And we have to then look at other mechanisms. There's the PSP model, which looks at future grant funding as the source of revenue, and potential other options that one can also look at. So a bit more challenging. This program is not yet as well advanced as the non-revenue water and reuse, for example, but we are now starting to look at projects that we can see how we can support them. The fourth program is a non-sewage sanitation, or what we call WES, water efficient sanitation solution program. So there's a lot of new developments happening internationally around improved treatment and toilet technologies. That does not necessarily have to be connected to a conventional waterborne sanitation and a centralized treatment system. So looking like more at decentralized solutions, on-site treatment solutions that doesn't require water to flush down a pipe into a centralized system, often just recycles the water within a closed loop system. So a lot of those new technologies are being or is becoming more and more available. And this program is focusing on rolling that out at a larger scale. So how do we support the adoption of these new technologies at a larger scale across the country? We are we've received some funding from the Gates Foundation that is supporting us to establish this program and really drive this program across the country. The models that we're looking at is more a municipal enabled but private sector driven model. So municipalities would then basically allow the private sector to come in and provide a sanitation service to a community or to a specific beneficiary. So looking at those sort of independent sanitation provider models. And typically where we see large-scale application of these projects is within, for example, the informal settlement environment, where we know waterborne sanitation or conventional sanitation is not possible. Schools, for example, but then also private sector developments, where the private sector are often constrained because it's now, as you may know, with the new norms and standards that's been presented by the Department of Water and Sanitation, it's illegal for a municipality to approve a private development if they don't have capacity to treat the effluent. So in many cases, developers are stuck. They can't proceed with their developments because there isn't sanitation capacity in the system. But if they can put a decentralized system in, it will now open up that will allow them to proceed, and municipalities often also then benefit because there's additional revenues, property rights revenue, for example, going to the municipality, and that economic development happening. So this is also a strong priority and focused program for us. The fifth program is a seawater desalination program, which is the aim is to basically procure volumes of desalinated seawater from the private sector. Obviously focusing on our coastal cities, where there might be a need to augment their supply, and that can be done through desalination of seawater. Again, the mechanism that's best suited for this type of a project is through a PPP, and we are focusing, and I'll just share a bit more about where we are with this program and what we're doing there. And then lastly, we have management contracts. Now, the management contract program is not a directly investment-related program. It doesn't lead to projects like all the others, but it's basically bringing private sector capacity, skills and expertise into a municipality on a let's say a 5 or an 8 or a 10-year period to assist the municipality with their water business. We know municipalities are severely constrained, or the water business function within municipalities are struggling because we don't always have the right skills and expertise and capacity. Again, bringing that in through the private sector will allow municipalities to be able to improve the way in which they deliver services to their customers. So these are the 6 programs. They are all of a larger type of projects, as you would have recognized. So, PPP projects, project finance type of structures, and it takes a bit of time for them to be prepared and structured before it goes into implementation. So what we are also looking at now is a quicker way in which we can respond to some of the challenges that municipalities have. So we're piloting at the moment in 2 municipalities what we call a rapid response service offering. It's basically sending a team into a municipality, identifying quick win projects, smaller projects that's got a high impact, that we can then support the municipalities. Firstly, just to identify where those projects are, which are those low-hanging fruit that we can identify, and it can be fixing a pump station or sorting out billing issues or a database for revenue enhancement, or smaller type of things. It's not a large PPP project for upgrading of a wastewater treatment works, but smaller type of projects that can be implemented quickly. And we're piloting this in the city of Johannesburg and the city of Matlosana at the moment. So we'll see how that works, and can then potentially roll it out into other municipalities as well. This is just a summary of some of our funding and strategic partners that we have. So on the vertical, in the columns here, you can see the different programs. On the top there is different funding partners or strategic partners. So to give you an example, SAICO is the Swiss government. They've given us some project preparation funding, which we are using on different programs. We've got GCF. Their funding is only limited to the water reuse program. So we can only use their funding on the reuse. Gates Foundation funding only on the non-sewage sanitation program. We go to the DBSA on a case-by-case basis to apply for project preparation funding, for example. IFC is a strategic partner, and we're engaging with them now to potentially act as a transaction advisor on some of the larger PPP projects that we are starting to look at. Okay, so that's just again just a quick recap on the WPO. So now I just want to run into some of the programs and more detail on the projects that we are working on. I think, as Vivek mentioned earlier, our main focus and mandate is on creating ways in which we can attract private sector participation, and it can take different forms. It can be through funding, can be through operation and maintenance, different ways in which the private sector can support municipalities to improve water service delivery. Now, the moment you talk to the private sector and you say to them that they must contract with the municipality, the first thing that comes up is they ask for the guarantee. So they want to know where's the guarantee, and we know that National Treasury do not give guarantees to municipalities. So we need to come up with an alternative option. We are currently looking at designing or putting guarantee instruments in place for some of the programs that we are working on as an alternative option to a national or a government supported guarantee. So the non-revenue water program is one. Just again, our program design has been completed, so we have standardized documentation. You will start seeing for the consultants in the room that for the projects that we are procuring, you'll start recognizing that the terms of reference will be looking the same. It's only the project details that will differ for different projects in different municipalities. Secondly is we're working on a guarantee instrument for the non-revenue water program. So as I've mentioned earlier, a PBC contractor will be required to go to a bank and say, I've been awarded this project, I need to invest 100 million rand, and the bank might say, but there's a credit risk on the municipality, and that guarantee that we're working on is intended to basically provide cover to the lenders of a PBC contractor to cover them for that municipal credit risk. So that is the idea with that instrument, and we've got a potential funder that we are engaging with and progressing with some design to maybe pilot this on 1 or 2 projects, and then being able to roll it out to other non-revenue water projects within the program. We are also working on a tender document for the pre-qualification of PBC contractors. So we want to basically establish a panel of PBC contractors that we can then draw from during RFP stages for bidding for the implementation of NRW PBC projects. So just quickly running through the pipeline, we've got currently we have a transaction advisor busy working on the preparation of a PBC project in eThekwini. It's the pink pink NRW project, and we're underway with the design of the PBC. So hopefully early in the new year we'll be done by that with the design, and we will then be able to procure a PBC contractor for implementation. For this project, we've also secured some funding from the BFI. So through the National Treasury, BFI has approved some funding that will go into a mix of funding, some coming from the PBC contractor, some from the municipality, and then some from the BFI. We're also supporting PBC project in the city of Tshwane. We're not funding that project, but the preparation of that project, but part of the steering committee that provides guidance during the design of the program, and likely also there towards the early part of the new year will be completed with that work, and will then be able to procure a PBC contractor for implementation. Some of you may know that we've recently advertised a tender for a transaction advisor for a PBC project in Polokwane. So that RFP is closed. We're currently busy with the bid evaluations and hope to make an appointment of a TA soon so that we can start with that design work. And then Mangaung, Buffalo City, we're also preparing to procure transaction advisor. So for these projects, the RFP documents, terms of reference going out, again, you'll start seeing a similar approach in terms of the scope of work and requirement. And then actually for municipalities in Gauteng as well. There are some other projects that's not yet on the list. These are the main ones that's sort of the closest or the furthest advanced in terms of moving to preparation. And some of the other projects that might come along will also then be added here. We're also now in discussions with City of Johannesburg or Joburg Water to also support with some of the projects that they are busy working on. On our water reuse program, I've mentioned that we've secured funding from the GCF, the Green Climate Fund. So we've got preparation funding there to start building a pipeline of projects. The GCF, however, we've got very strict requirements and qualifying criteria in terms of specifically climate. So we need to demonstrate that a reuse project or by having to do a reuse is largely as a result of climate change. So that water insecurity must be as a result of climate change. So we have to demonstrate that first to determine which if a municipality qualifies for GCF funding. So we completed primary risk and detailed climate risk and vulnerability assessments on 47 municipalities. So that's the 8 metros and the 39 intermediate cities, selecting those obviously where the larger volumes of wastewater is that is being generated. So that so from that we then were able to determine which meets that criteria. There were 34 municipalities that qualified for further support from the GCF funding. So it means that out of this list of municipalities, the ones that qualify, we can then use the GCF grant funding to help with the preparation of reuse projects within those municipalities. The municipalities that do not qualify doesn't mean we cannot support them at all. We can still support, but we just cannot use the GCF funding. So we've got other mechanisms and other options that we are then following. We then also issued an expression of interest. The EOI is on the DBSA website. Anybody's interested there, but it's basically inviting a municipality to submit their reuse project to us to enable us to then determine whether we and how we can support. So we want to determine where they are, what work have they done, where are the gaps, and how can we come in to support them. So this is the list of projects, and again, just I think the need for a guarantee instrument has again been identified. We want to put a program guarantee in place for the reuse program, so that potential projects that require funding from or guarantees from that for a project can then draw down on or from that program guarantee. So doing further work on that. And then just going through the list quickly, we've got the Umhloti and Umkomaas wastewater treatment and reuse PPP project. As you know, that has been quite well advanced. The RFP closed about 2 months ago. eThekwini busy with the evaluations of that at the moment. For this project, we are seeing if we can potentially also support with a concessional loan, the GCF concessional loan funding, to go in alongside other investors to fund that project. There is also the Northern Nkomaashu reuse project, the PPP project, also in eThekwini, and the municipality busy with the feasibility study. We've also supported them now to do a BFI application for that project. So we are looking at, we have submitted and in discussions now to see how we can potentially take that forward. The reasoning behind that is we do require for that project some viability gap funding to come in from government to be able to basically subsidize the price of that project and make it more possible to get that project going and get the private sector to then be able to support that project. The third one is the Rooiwal wastewater treatment works in Tshwane, where we are working with the city of Tshwane and with ISA to busy with the preparation of that project. And we are it's the preparation is underway, and hopefully we'll soon be able to see how we can take that project further into implementation. 2 projects we're working on with Rand Water Services and Erwat is Olifantsfontein and Waterfall wastewater treatment works. Those projects will hopefully within the next couple of weeks go to market for procuring transaction advisors. It's likely the model there that we're looking at is also through PPPs, and getting the PPP basically to, oh sorry, not as a PPP, but rather as a Rand Water owned SPV. So looking at it more from a project finance perspective, where Rand Water Services might set up an entity that will be the vehicle through which those projects are then implemented. So then the third one is, or the next one is the Sebokeng wastewater treatment works reuse project in Mfuleni. And we are there looking at also working with Rand Water Services to see how we can put that project forward. It will likely also to be in the form of a project finance Rand Water SPV owned structure. We have then also received an expression of interest from George Municipality, and they've got a reuse project that they are looking at the moment, the Outoniqua Advanced Wastewater Treatment Plant. So they are in preparation for them to come, and we'll see how we can support them further. There's also Rand Water Services, Rand West City, that has the Pellsvale wastewater treatment works, and we'll see if we can assist there. A couple of reuse projects we're looking at in Buffalo City and Nelson Mandela Bay. It's still at an early stage, and we are seeing if and how we can support them with those projects. They will likely be structured as P projects. And then the Marshallspoort reuse scheme in Mangaung and we're working with ISA there. That project, Mangaung, doesn't unfortunately qualify for GCF funding support. So we are looking at other mechanisms and potentially funding that preparation work through the ISA project prep funding. So I think, again, a strong pipeline starting to develop here, and other projects also in discussions with, again, Joburg Water to help potentially with Lanseria projects in City of Cape Town that we're also busy with. Then, as I've mentioned earlier, the wastewater treatment program is still at a relatively earlier stage, and we are there looking at starting to develop a pipeline of projects, identify projects, looking at the green drop reports and so on. This is a bit more tricky because, as I've mentioned, it's not a clear project finance transaction that you can structure there, and we're looking at other mechanisms to basically see how we can then support the implementation of those projects. Then the seawater desalination program is, we've just appointed, or not just a while back, appointed a transaction advisors through the IFC, and they are busy helping us to design this seawater desalination program. So designing the guidelines, the rules, how this program will work, developing standardized documentation, etc. And we're also identifying some projects. We're in discussions with the City of Cape Town now to try and see if we can support them with the transaction advisory work on some of their desal projects. Our non-sewage sanitation program is also picking up momentum. We've just appointed a transaction advisor to help us to design the programs, design the scale-up strategy, identify projects that we can start rolling out, and we're also already supporting eThekwini in the City of Cape Town with their NSS or WES projects. And then lastly is the management contracts program. Currently assisting the eThekwini with the design of the management contract. I think it's important here to note that the trading services reforms that the National Treasury through the CSP is busy with provides an ideal opportunity for private sector management contracts to come in and help those water departments or water entities within the metros to be able to achieve their targets that's been set through the trading services reform. So eThekwini is quite far advanced in terms of their project that they want to procure a management contractor. So they've gone out on an EOI. We've helped them now to develop a standardized tender document and contract for a management contract. And the National Treasury has approached us to see if we can use that work and basically be able to support other metros that also wants to follow that same route. Yeah, I think that's it from my side, Vivek. I'll hand back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Johan. Thank you for that. Well, firstly, a couple of things that stood out for me was the way you separate your 6 programs into a rapid response type focus, and then the 2 remaining ones sort of on a longer term focus. The other thing that stood out was how you characterize your offerings by contract type that are most suitable. And here we're saying, colleagues,
Sorry, could you mute whoever, or else I'm gonna be muting you.
thanks, Nabutu.
Sorry,
The other thing that stood out was that you identified the most suitable contracting mechanisms for the type of work that you did. Yeah, that slide. And the last thing that got me on this slide was the very last bit at the bottom, where you talk to ecological infrastructure. And of here I'm thinking that you are stressing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is how important the receiving water environment is, and that if we don't take care of it, that I mean, as a country, our water resource is going to be degraded very, very quickly. Colleagues, I don't see any hands yet. So I'm going to make a couple of more comments and then focus on some questions. I mean, in the meantime, could the attendees, the colleagues also, well, if you have any questions for Johan, please raise them. Johan, first some comments. And I'm guessing this figure that I'm going to mention is also a bit dated. And I'm guessing this figure that I've got is also from Water Affairs. And the story goes along like this, that South Africa, over a period of about a decade, needs about 900 billion for water infrastructure. And they refer to that as the investment gap. Now, by any measure, our public finances are going to be seriously stretched to address that type of a gap. And the second comment goes along the the municipalities and their financial and technical capacity. I mean, could you talk to us about those 2 points?
Yes, thanks, Vivek. Sorry, I'm just making a note here. So maybe just a couple of responses to your observations. So yes, as I've mentioned, the rapid response offering is really something that's a bit more recent, because we're working. It takes time. Everybody's asking where are the projects? When are they going to come to market? When are they going to be implemented? But as you all know, it takes time to properly prepare and structure projects. If it's larger projects, if it's triple Ps, it does take time. So in order for us to, we know in many cases there are severe challenges in municipalities. We all know what's happening in the city of Johannesburg. So we said, how can we, is there a way, is there value that we can add to try and identify and address some of the immediate needs within municipalities? And as I said, we're piloting this now to see if it's something that can work, and we'll then be in a position to move forward on that. Yes, and on the models that I've listed here, Vivek, are sort of, as you've said, more suitable. It's not to say it's the only model. So within a program, there might be more than one option available, and the feasibility study will obviously determine what is the most suitable and most appropriate model for implementing a specific project. So the ones that I've listed here are probably the more suitable for a specific program, but it's not to say it's the only one. We may have a suite of options under a specific program that we can then select and say, okay, for this project, we feel this is the best option. The ecological infrastructure is, yes, as you say, we need to understand how the environment reacts. How can we benefit from, a wetland that can potentially treat wastewater? it's more difficult to finance those types of projects because, again, there aren't necessarily revenue streams coming from them. But we see this ecological infrastructure basically as a cross-cutting type of a program that cuts across all the different programs, and that can be incorporated into projects that are more sort of conventional or physical infrastructure projects. On the investment gap, yes, I mean that figure has been, I don't know, I doubt if the figure is still relevant, but in any case, whether it's 900 billion or 1.5 trillion or whatever, we know that this is a huge need for the private for investment in the water sector. I think the big thing here is we know government cannot do this alone. In the past, we used to say, if there's 100 million rand necessary for a wastewater treatment works, we used to go to government and say, give me 100 million for this project. We need to change that mindset. We need to say, what amount of funding can we attract from the private sector, from DFIs? If that's 80 million and we need 20 million from government to make the project bankable, then that is rather the way in which we should look at these types of projects. I'm getting a bit frustrated with municipalities at the moment approaching the BFI, because that's exactly the framework or the mindset within which they approach the BFI, is to say, I need 100% of my funding. I'm applying for 100% of the project funding from the BFI. Government does not have that money. So we need to go back and rather restructure the project and say to the BFI, if we can demonstrate to say we can get 80% from all these other investors, we need 20% of the project funding to come from government, then that is much more reasonable and attractive, and I think realistic to look at things that way. So I think there is a bit of a mindset change that we need to do there. And then I think I hope I understood your question correctly, Vivek, but I think municipalities are severely constrained when it comes to skills, expertise, and capacity. So they don't have all the engineers, they don't have the technical expertise, they don't know how to structure, to prepare and structure projects where private sector can then participate in. So we need to strengthen them in that space, and that's really where the WPO comes in, and the likes of a GTAC comes in to help them with that skill and capacity and just to know what you need to do, because often municipalities just, and nothing against engineers, I'm an engineer myself, but engineers love doing technical feasibility studies. Sizing of infrastructure and costing it, that's the easy part. We need to supplement that with the financial structuring, with the institutional structuring, with all these other things that investors will look at to say, is this project bankable? Because just the technical feasibility study does not illustrate bankability. We need to understand the risk associated with a project and come up with mechanisms to mitigate that risk. So that's where, again, the private sector, I think, can also play a large role through our consultants, through the transaction advisors, with the guidance of a programmatic approach, and to know what it is that we need to do to get to a bankable stage and get projects then ready for private sector participation. I hope I've addressed all your questions there, Vivek. Thanks.
You have. Thanks for that. Colleagues, we had a question from, or we had Landiwe Mashlango. Her hand was raised. Landiwe, you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks very much. Thanks for a very enlightful presentation. I'm just interested to know much more just on the water reuse, you did say that this is more of an appropriate or preferred procurement, like on the PPP. Can you maybe just explain on the water reuse? Normally, the private sector would prefer PPP where there's very clear off-taker. Are we talking about a merchant PPP here? Because it looks like the off-taker at least would be more in terms of the other private sector. What's your experience in this? Is it if it is a PPP, what normally would be the kind of person that would actually procure those that treated water? I was quite interested in that. And maybe in the same breath, if you could just explain to me the PSP just on the wastewater treatment. I didn't quite get it in terms as to what how does that actually happen in practice. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yes, thanks, Vivek. Thanks, Landiwe. So the first one, we know that municipalities are often very constrained their balance sheet. So very few municipalities can actually raise funding on balance sheet. So the PPP allows them to do things off balance sheet, and I'm putting off balance sheet in inverted commas because it's not entirely off balance sheet. There is still some, sitting on the balance sheet, but at least the borrowing does not sit on the balance sheet of the municipality. And the way in which a water reuse project can typically be structured is on such a project finance type of a basis. So you will ring fence the project. Let's say it's a wastewater treatment works, and let's for this example let's say we've got a 20 megaliters per day wastewater treatment works. It needs additional capacity of 10 megaliters per day, so we need to upgrade the project to 30 megaliters per day. So part of that project will be to raise funding and provide that additional capacity. And then we might say that of that 30 megaliters per day, we are going to reuse 20 megaliters of water. So we will then add an advanced treatment facility to that existing wastewater treatment works to treat that 20 megaliters per day. And that water can then be treated to a certain level. So we can either treat to potable standard, we can treat to for industrial use, or we can treat for agricultural use, for irrigation. So depending on what the offtake opportunities are, will determine to what level do we treat. So if there are industries in the vicinity of that project that requires water for their processing, for example, for their operations, and they need it at a certain quality, then we can treat to that quality. If we treat to a potable standard and maybe sell it back to the municipality or sell it to a water board, that again allows for a specific offtake opportunity. Or in some cases, there might be irrigation opportunities. So, and again, this makeup will depend on the specific project. It will be different for each project, but each one of these streams then represents a source of revenue. So you can then say, if I'm selling potable water to the municipality or to a water board, they will buy that water and they will pay the project for that water. Or if I treat to industrial grade for, let's say, an Eskom or a paper and pulp factory or whatever industry there might be that requires industrial grade water, and they will again pay for that water, and there's a revenue stream coming into the project. Similar then also for the irrigation part. So all of those represents a source of revenue. And then we also said from these water recovery centers now, because it includes both a wastewater treatment works and an advanced treatment works, we call it a resource recovery center, for example, we can generate energy which will lower our requirement on external supply from Eskom, for example. So there's a saving, and then also we can beneficiate the sludge. So we can treat the sludge and we can maybe make it available for producing fertilizers or whatever. Again, a potential source of revenue. So what the project finance or the PPP nature of this is then is that you ring fence that project, you can raise funding and you're able to repay that debt that was that you obtained for the project over a 10 or 20 or 30-year period. So that is traditionally what a project finance or a PPP mechanism looks like, and that's why we're saying that this project or a water reuse project lends itself to that as a mechanism, because it allows the private sector to come in and finance. The municipality doesn't have to raise all the finance, and we also get skills from the private sector. And this is also an important point: is how do we operate and maintain this, especially if you start looking at potable use. Then there's a whole host of red flags going up, and the public might say, but I don't trust the municipality to be able to do this. But if we can demonstrate that we've got a qualified operator in the private sector, we've got all the checks and balances, it gives much more comfort. So bringing in that O&M function is also very important. And then on your second question around the PSP model, so in smaller municipalities, and if we look at wastewater treatment, for example, we say municipality is responsible for collecting the effluent coming from households, from businesses, from industry, and we need to treat that effluent. Now, often people don't pay for services, or if they do, there's limited revenue coming in. So it makes it very difficult with a limited revenue stream to support an investment. So if I have to raise 100 or 200 million rand for this project to maybe upgrade a plant from 10 to 15 megaliters per day in a small town, then I don't have revenues to repay that investment. So that makes it very difficult to do a project on a PPP or a project finance basis, as for the example that we've just had now. So we need to then look at other options. And what we are saying is that the option is we know that the grants flows to municipalities on an annual basis. So we get the conditional grants through MEEC, for example, that flows to municipalities. If we can maybe use a portion of that annual grant funding as our source of revenue. So we know we may not get revenues from user charges, but we know that the grants flow. So if we want to raise the funding to implement the project from a bank, for example, and we can then use a portion, 10, 20, 15% of that grant that goes to the municipality, use that as a source of revenue over a period of time that can then support the investment of that project. So that's in a nutshell what the PSP model is based on. It's taking a portion of future grants, ring-fencing that, and using that as a source of revenue to support the establishment or the implementation of a specific project. I hope it answers your question. Thanks, Vivek.
Thanks, Johan. We have a question and a comment on the chat. The first one is from from Vainant. And Vainant is asking whether the amendments to the MFMA PPP regulations were gazetted. And what I do know is that there was some gazetting that happened in February this year, but these are still at a draft stage, and I don't know if these have been finalized. Is there anyone from our PPP unit that can give us some insight into that? Colleagues? No. Venet, we'll have to get back to you on that question. And the second comment we have is from Rachel, and Rachel is saying that it's good to see that different models are being applied to ensure a rapid response. Colleagues, I'm just looking at the time. I think we might have time for one question more, and I'm going to ask that question. Johan, related to financing and risk sharing, yeah, some of the things that come up are high financial risks, long payback periods in the water sector, and we're asking also, how can municipalities manage affordability concerns while allowing for decent returns to the private sector? Any thoughts on that?
Sorry, just the last question, Vivek, you broke up a bit on my side.
How can municipalities manage affordability concerns?
Affordability. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I think, I mean, financing the water sector is not easy. It's not like energy. So because it's much more of a social type of a service. So you often find that the project, one needs to look at whether the project is it affordable and are people willing to pay. So those for me are two key considerations in your structuring, in your design of any project, any water project. So it's affordability and willingness to pay. So a project might be affordable, but people aren't willing to pay, or it might not be affordable, but people are willing to pay. So one needs to look at that carefully in your financial modeling. But what we often see, Vivek, is that if you design a project and structure a project purely on a commercial basis, that your tariffs become unaffordable. So give an example. Let's say we've got a water reuse project, and we say we need it's X billion rand. Well, let's say just for purposes of an example, it's a billion. It's R1 billion to do this reuse project. Let's say we come out and if we raise that R1 billion purely on a commercial basis from the private sector, from DFIs, we determine a tariff, and let's say the tariff is 30 rand a kiloliter. And let's say that the existing bulk or retail tariff of the municipalities is, let's say, 20 megaliters per day. So we are 20 rand per kiloliter. So we're 10 rand per kiloliter above what the average price of the municipality is. What then becomes into place, then one needs to start looking at how do we then subsidize that cost. So then one starts looking at bringing in grant funding, bring in viability gap funding from the National Treasury or from a grant, for example, a BFI, to say how much of that capital investment is required to be funded to allow us to bring that cost of that water down. So if we say our benchmark is 20 rand per kiloliter, so we need to bring 10 rand. So if you work backwards, you can say, okay, I need 100 or 200 million rand grant funding, free money to come in that doesn't require a repayment, that doesn't attract interest, and that will then start assisting you to make your tariffs affordable. So it's all about that financial structuring, the financial modeling, to determine how do we bring that cost of capital down and eventually bring the funding down. And it's not only bringing in grant funding. There are other ways we can bring in concessional funding. There are other ways in which one can bring that cost of a project down. and that will result in lowering the tariff that is necessary to sustain the project.
Colleagues, are there any other questions for Johan? No. We are approaching the end of our time contract, and I'm going to say thank you to Johan for sharing his insights into this space with us. It's been quite insightful, Johan. Thank you for that. Colleagues, we're at the end of our time, and we're going to stop over here. Thank you. You want to?
Thank you so much, Vivek, and thank you so much, Johan, as well, for such an insightful and informative presentation. Colleagues, thank you again for joining, and I would like you to remind you, please fill in our survey to rate the session how it was, and then the presentation will also be shared on our YouTube channel and website for further engagement with the presentation from Johan. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend further.
Thanks, everybody.
Sorry, Johan, before you go, we have a comment from Landiwe asking how she can contact you.
I can put my email address in the chat. I'll just do that quickly.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Johan.
Okay, thank you.
Bye, colleagues.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.